So I'm Chad Ellis, the CEO of Texas Agricultural Land Trust. Texas Agricultural Land Trust is, our mission is to conserve the Texas heritage of agricultural lands, our wildlife habitat, and our natural resources. We partner with our land stewards, our ranchers and farmers across the state to help preserve their operations to not only benefit themselves, but for all Texans. Ranchers each approach land management differently, and this is a critical component. Just like you and I, our DNA is different. We act different. We look different. Each ranch or farm has its own DNA, and that's the soils underneath it. And so you have this dynamics of the land and the land manager that come together, of looking at the goals and objectives of that land and how they operate that. When we look across Texas as well, we have a very vast difference from our climate. We go from far west Texas of 10-inch rainfall to, further east to over 50 inches of rainfall. So we have this big dynamics of soils, our climate, and what's most important in management is the focus of our resources. And that starts with the soils underneath your feet. And it's really about building that soil health and creating resilient landscapes that maximize its production of its resources. And this is really achieved through management. And I always say we don't deal with ecological issues by practices, we deal with them by principles. And that's the guiding principles of putting all of those practices and all of these things holistically together. And it really starts with the 5 soil health principles of keeping the ground covered, optimizing that disturbance, diversity, keeping a living root in the ground 365 days of the year. And lastly, it's integrating livestock is a tremendous tool. Conservation easements, serve as a tool to really address, our increasing population demands, this rising land market values, a large ownership of transfer that really create an uncertain future of the state's rural working lands. And that includes this wildlife habitat and biodiversity. Landowners work with us, with TALT or other qualified land trusts. And we enter into a legal binding agreement. The landowner still retains the title of the property while giving away their rights to commercial and industrial development. These agreements stay with the land. It helps really keep the protection of the land despite the changes of its ownership. And as a result, these landowners can continue to live and work their land, sell their land, hand it down to the next generation, so long as it stays in that agricultural use and providing these many benefits to the state of Texas, including biodiversity and wildlife habitat. At TALT, we have over 30 easements. We have over 235,000 acres under easement. And each easement has its own story, and each easement is very special. Probably the most recent easement that we had is a 423-acre easement on the Llano River in Mason County. So this piece of property is in between Mason and Fredericksburg, Texas. This ranch is in an area of rapidly increasing fragmentation in one of the most threatened regions of Texas in the hill country. This easement has keeping together this ranch that has been in the family since 1959, so over 160 years. And this particular easement is very special to me because it was my first easement that I was part of, and to see the face of the landowner after closing was just something amazing. It was like a kid, on Christmas morning, running in to the Christmas tree of just smiles and glowing, and you could see this big pressure and weight lifted off of them. You think of the pressure of having this legacy and this heritage that he's responsible for over 160 years. And, after that closing, there was this relief that he knew that he has kept this ranch together, this heritage that can go down to the next generation. And not only does it benefit his family, but he has this land stewardship ethic, and he understands the importance of that land and what it provides to all Texans. From the wildlife habitat, the biodiversity, the birds, their native species of white-tailed deer and quail. But most importantly, this piece of property is preserving some of our most precious resources in Texas, and that's the water on the Llano River. That's going to be able to help provide this freshwater resources for the Texas Hill Country. When we think of Texas, um, our approaches to conservation are different in the sense in that Texas is 95% privately owned. 82% of that is private land stewards, these farmers and ranchers. And so by partnering with these land stewards, it's important because there's a great responsibility of their management to help protect and the resources, and especially with endangered species. The thing is, I think that's important to know and look at is these opportunities to work with landowners. And it's just like anything, it's kind of managing people is, there's the carrot and then there's the stick. And we get much further by partnering and collaborating and providing carrots to help empower the producer to be better tomorrow than they are today. And that's our goal. We're working on a new easement that we're hoping to close here next week. It's a special easement, and again has its own story to itself. And it's an easement that's a historic ranch in the Hill Country with many family members, and the ranch has been split up and it has stayed together with all of these different families staying together. And we're looking to close the first easement of many more to keep the whole entire ranch together. So it's an exciting time for us, and an exciting time for our natural resources in Texas. I think one of our world is changing. In Texas, our population is expected to increase 70% in the next 50 years. So by 2070, this growth will have far-reaching impacts. As our population's growth grow, we expand our cities, we develop the land as previously served as those farms and ranches that provided the wildlife habitat and recreational areas for our state. We lose more than just the land. We lose the habitat for our wildlife, our freshwater resources, and our robust economic drivers for our state. As a CEO of TALT, I work to conserve these working lands in Texas and to ensure our resources go further and serve our state for generations to come. It's very important that we understand that this partnerships with these land stewards is the way to conserve our state's natural resources, and ranchers are the critical partners to achieve this conservation goal.